Hello everybody, my name is Susanna Testa and I will present on behalf of Professor Alba Cappellieri and Livia Tenuta a contribution dedicated to the topic of distributed production and sustainability strategies profession. We belong to the design department of Politecnico di Milano and our researchers are mainly dedicated to the topic of jewelry and accessories and in particular to foster innovation for the field. Fashion as a discipline has always been characterized by the intertwining of complex trajectories based on thematic references, borrowed methodologies, and the appropriations of various unrelated fields of expertise with the clear aim of generating innovation. An example of cross-fertilization which has traditionally been widely implemented is the formal reference, whether literal or freely reinterpreted. Throughout history, there are plenty of examples which bring to the fore fashion's highly referential nature. There are numerous of instances of this kind of cross-fertilization, and one of these is notably the influence which different geographical cultures have exerted on the creative production of many famous fashion designers, which is an influence which to this day cyclically inspires modern collections. Another form of traditional cross-fertilization resorted to materials usually employed in other sectors, as was famously in the case with denim. In a historical perspective, innovation has been achieved by importing procedures and technologies from a number of sectors, regardless of their degree of affinity. Today, the fashion industry is a highly complex, pluralistic, and diversified organism in which material and immaterial products, cultural capital, and human resources merge together. As the outcome of a complex integration process among different methodologies and areas, fashion contributes to a new reading of the cultural changes which shape our present, and by drawing on various codes, it is capable of generating a narrative which bestows meaning on the relationship between references, materials, technology, products, and processes. So, given the need to rise to modernity's challenges and to be innovative, the forms of cross-fertilization in the contemporary world are becoming ever more daring, while the number of sectors involved is steadily growing and the skills required are becoming increasingly specialized. Contemporary fashion designers are forced to operate on more levels in increasingly complex contexts and to harmonize diverse elements which are in contrast, if not in outright diametrical opposition. So they show a shared inclination to a high degree of flexibility which conjugates the cross-fertilization of different kinds of knowledge and know-how and experience a similar need to experiment materially and to reach a developed vision of the technology they apply. Such modus operandi strives to seek and define original scenarios and presupposes a special ability in audaciously stretching the designer's initiatives beyond the comfort zone, thereby challenging and breaking the limitation derived from traditional paradigms such as matter, codes, and processes. The fashion industry is only second to the oil one in terms of world pollution, and not only does it make large use of chemicals, but it also produces a huge quantity of waste. The concept of waste is structurally inbuilt in the consumerist model underlying the fashion industry, which is in turn largely regulated by a notion of trend. There are a number of enterprises which have developed new fibers and production technologies which could foster a sustainable development. Sustainable fashion is about being kind to our environment, responsible with our resources, and treating our fellow garment workers like human beings. This means looking at the tag, using what you have, and being creative in our wardrobe choices. So the garment life cycle explains the steps a piece of clothes moves through from seed to grave. A few experimental projects have been devoted to the recycling of highly polluting materials such as plastic waste. The fast fashion industry produces 53 million tons of clothing every year, 87% of which ends up waste in landfills. In this sense, the creation of biodegradable clothing might provide an alternative solution to the closed cycle of production, disposal, and recycling. Indeed, some firms have already started developing alternative and sustainable materials. Although traditional natural fibers such as cotton and flax are considered to be less environmentally damaging than synthetic fibers, they still require an abundant use of resources to be cultivated. Another important problem related to cotton concerns, for example, the use of pollutants to dye tissue. It is for this reason that some firms have started turning organic waste available in large quantities, especially of vegetal origin, into innovative materials which may be useful for the fashion industry. The fashion industry may thus turn an environmental threat into an opportunity, and was the case with the project jointly developed by Vivo Barefoot and Bloom. Indeed, a very concrete threat to our planet is currently posed by the exponential proliferation of algae, which is largely due to the phosphorus and nitrates released into the sea by chemical waste. However, these organisms are in fact extremely versatile and may be transformed into bioplastic material. Moreover, these fibers release antioxidants, vitamins, and other nutrients which are beneficial to the skin of the wearer. There are also other kinds of innovative and eco-friendly materials which rely on the processing of waste of animal origin. Spider silk, for example, despite its apparent fragility and flimsiness, is in fact extremely resistant and characteristic, which has been developed by researchers with quite different backgrounds. Adidas has presented a footwear prototype made of synthetic biodegradable spider silk, and the same material has more recently been used by Bolt Threads in their new lines of ties. Biocouture, on the other hand, develops items of clothing from bacterial cellulose and endeavors to explore and follow natural processes which rely on an extremely limited number of raw materials such as bacteria, molds, and recovered waste. However, the above examples still constitute isolated cases, so avant-garde experiments whose results are often available in the prototype form and far from industrial production. So these researches, pioneering as they are, constitute an avant-garde trend that points to a future direction as demonstrated by the results of the State of Fashion 2018. So according to the report, fashion companies have begun to grasp the importance of sustainable and transparent approach to production. So 42 out of 100 fashion brands in 2017 disclose information on their suppliers. Also, according to the State of Fashion 2018, millennials are interested in more suitable solutions. And in fact, 66% of global millennials are willing to spend more on sustainable brands. Therefore, an important lever towards the adoption of eco-friendly strategies is the awareness that in the fashion sector, attention to sustainability can be an important element of differentiation for the consumer. From the possibility to express oneself to functionality, from the creation of new ways to communicate to greater sustainability. So the introduction of digital technology has entailed a radical change which has affected the very notion of fashion. Aesthetics and technical skills have now been joined by the ethical selection of materials respect for the environment, and the protection and promotion of the joint cultural and traditional heritage associated with the surrounding territory. This approach has had obvious repercussions along the designer's activity and location choice, who are met with a growing need to reduce the consumption of resources required by research, product promotion, and product commercialization. So, biology, chemistry, and materials engineering have greatly contributed to the identification of solutions favoring sustainability thanks to the development of new materials that are either recycled or made by biocompatible and biodegradable natural fibers. Digital technologies, however, can also supply some solution which may make the fashion industry more sustainable. Indeed, digital technologies have occasioned great changes in the whole of fashion's production process by assisting the transition from large scale, centralized design and production systems to ones that are decentralized or else spread among smaller networked units. Modern design arose from industrial chain production with great output and brought about the aesthetic standardization of the industrial offer, whose only lingering value resides in its very brand name. Design's widespread presence and distributed production, however, do not supply only products but also services which are instrumental in the creation of customized objects and which actively engage consumer by educating them and stimulating their creativity. So the serial production of the finished product is replaced by the design of models, digital platforms, and semi-finished products which may be modified, customized, and finished by the consumers themselves. The post-couture collective is an interesting example of production which endeavors to be open and cooperation based, so they actively encourage final user to access their website and to download, customize, produce and self-assemble their chosen garments. The idea of Make It by Chiappaura is that based on where you are and who you are, the designers Mario Minale and Cunico Meda matched an orchid of a certain size and staged to your specific information. So if you like it, you can download the data for the design and you can 3D print it and have it shipped directly to you. Consumers' new role from passive users to well-informed self-creators, together with their involvement in the design process, has made them more discriminating as regards to the products available on the market. So designer products and brands are now being snubbed in favor of the consumer's own creativity and ability to constantly reinvent products, and consumers no longer critically accept to have products imposed on them. Consumers therefore contribute to the conceptual definition of goods, and rather than waiting for companies to decide for them, they create the product that they require themselves. Industrial production has become distributed, decentralized, and has even ended up in the user's homes turned laboratories, as is the case with self-production. This trend greatly reduces the number of resources needed, the cost of production, packaging and transport, and even diminishes the waste derived from unsold finished goods. Manufactured objects are consequently becoming territorialized and are being produced closer and closer to their end users, thereby cutting down the pollution occasioned by the excessive consumption of resources and transport. What is more, the consumer's new active role, together with their involvement in the actual manufacturing process, helps them develop greater manual skills and makes them more aware of waste related issues. The emotional attachment they develop with the object that they have built reduces the tendency to easily dispose of it, which is more often than not a common side effect of serial product. Consumers become more sensitive to discarded objects that only exacerbate waste related problems and strive to reuse exhausted objects as much as possible, either by creatively modifying them or by finding new uses for them. Within the system, the waste of resources and the costs of storage and transport are much lower than in the traditional centralized production. So we have mixed groups of active consumers and professional designers jointly develop projects and freely exchange skills and knowledge, pull together their strengths and abilities, and foster a production system which offers an alternative to the company based and characterized by the lack of mediation and by costs determined by large scale retailers. Assuming that this model may altogether replace the traditional serial one is of course unrealistic, but there is no reason why it cannot compound and influence it. Thank you very much for listening.